This conference will now be recorded.
We'll call the zoning board meeting for November 13th of 2023 to order at 6 o'clock. We have just the one case on the docket here, the rehearing of case ZB 23-14. Mr. Pellerin. How's it going? Good. This is actually our first actual rehearing. Last one we didn't do. So we're just gonna have to go, basically it's as if we are doing the case all over again. So if you could talk about what you're doing, the new information you found, and the overall picture there.
Can I close the laptop so I can open my folder, or no? Just rest it right on it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Yep. My name is Francois Pellerin. I have a shop at 142 East Main Street in Tilton. I'm applying for a variance, and it's requested from Article 7, Section 7 of the zoning ordinance to permit an automotive shop. Facts supporting this request. I'm going to read through the entire literature.
Yeah, if you would.
Okay.
Thank you.
Both sides. Okay.
Just the application.
Yes. Yeah. Facts supporting this request. One, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest because, well, there's no adverse effects on the public interest. I run a landscaping business out of this same building. Done a lot of improvements and plan to do more along with helping local residents. Number two, the variance were granted. The spirit of the ordinance would be observed because, well, we would continue to enhance the property in a positive way. Again, we're very big on organization and curb appeal. Our property is very unique the way it's set up, the way it was set up as soon as we purchased it. Granting the variance would do substantial justice because, well, I can operate out of this location 5 days a week. And it would create more jobs for local residents along with helping the community. Number four, if the variance were granted, the values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished because we're in the business of enhancing properties and helping people. We're about curb appeal. We'd like to continue to enhance and accent the neighborhood. Number five, unnecessary hardship. I'd like to resort back to, there was a simplex. There was a special condition of the variance. Our property's unique setting. There was a Rand Court versus City of Manchester. It was number 2002-0208 on Friday, January 10th, 2003. There was the criteria for proving hardship was, changed, and it says, in order to prove a necessary hardship before simplex, an applicant for a variance had to show the zoning regulations deprived him or her of any reasonable use of the land. The court said that the standard was too restrictive and didn't properly balance the municipality's right to the zone with the landowner's constitutional right to use his or her property. There's other sales and rental and boat watercraft, including service repairs, are marked as special exception for this area. This garage or this shop that I purchased was already set up and was operated in similar work-like manners to an automotive shop. It was, Fisher plows and a repair shop and different things like that. And I typed up this area. I'm going to read what I typed up for line item 5. I purchased this building because it was set up with 2 garages. Get the right paper here. There it is. Okay. With 2 garage bays, plenty of room inside to work on different things. When I purchased the building, it was already set up for an automotive shop and still is. I'm very organized, well-rounded in this industry. I'm interested in an automotive shop. My foreman, who has, without a doubt, proved he wants to improve the company and expand into a new revenue, which is needed because my landscaping company is seasonal. We struggle over the winter months. The board denies me the right to run an automotive shop. I will be forced to buy another building in another area, which will cause me a severe hardship to not only lose valuable employees from the move, but also everything invested in the property, along with visibility I get now in this beautiful town of Tilton. Furthermore, this property would allow equipment repairs along with ATVs and boats. I'm looking to do something more simple than that and on a smaller scale and less noticeable. I'm not correcting the building. It's a pre-existing repair shop. The use is reasonable use given the existing building. Per the new interpretation of hardship is now considered reasonable. And I'll say this part again, whereas before simplex, hardship existed only when special conditions of the land rendered it uniquely unsuitable for the use for which it was zoned. After simplex, the hardship exists when special conditions of the land rendered the use for which the variance is sought reasonable. That's what I have for that.
All set?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions for him?
I got a few comments.
Yeah. No questions for him at the moment, though?
Nope.
No. Okay, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, in going back through all the documents that were given out to us earlier and available also tonight, back in 2009, when the case came back before the ZBA and it had whatever, it was made very extremely clear that the only work that was permitted on vehicles in the shop at that time was welding and the dealing with the restructuring of snow plows and installing or adjusting trailer hitches, but it was basically focused on welding. Back in October 2019, just prior to Mr. Pellerin purchasing the property, the planning board did in fact grant him approved a site plan. And in the site plan, the only thing that really resembled anything close to doing mechanical work was the words maintaining mowers in the garage area, nothing whatsoever to do about other kinds of mechanical repairs. And at that time and point, it was even brought out that in fact, in order to meet the conditions of that approval, he'd even have to remove the floor drain inside the building. But at that time and point, the only thing that the site plan granted to Mr. Pellerin was to operate a landscaping business and to store and to maintain his mowing equipment, nothing else. So at that point, we're back to ground zero. This happens to be in the mixed use district. And if you happen to go into the chart of permitted uses, the following items are not permitted in mixed use district. The first one is motor vehicle sales and rental. Well, I know he's not applying for that, but it's still not allowed. Number 2, sales and installation of vehicle parts and accessories. Well, it seems to me by doing repair work, that would be contrary to item number 2. Number 3, motor vehicle repairs and maintenance. That is not permitted. And then number 9 on the chart said recreational vehicles and camping trailers, including servicing and repairs. That is not permitted. When you look at where we are right now by the request to do vehicle maintenance repairs and all those different kinds of things in there, they're actually contrary to everything that's on the permitted uses chart,
Chuck,
regardless of what it had been previously.
if it was allowed, we wouldn't be here tonight.
I know.
So of
I
course
know.
it's
I'm
not
just
allowed
trying
in
to
a
make
mixed-use
my
district.
point. And so at this point, since it's not permitted, I'm just bringing that to your attention.
It is not permitted. That is the reason for our meeting. And that is the thing that we're discussing, is that this is a use he's asking to do in a zoning that is not permitted in. So if it was allowed, he wouldn't have to come before this board. That being said, you're absolutely right that in the discussion, that's what he wanted to do, was a lawn mowing business. And that's what the initial planning board meeting was about. He's attempting to change his use. And again, that's why we're here to have this discussion. So all of those things are true statements, but all of those true statements also lead us to this meeting tonight. Now, the question here is the evidence that he is proposing to us reasonable to do what he is asking to do in a district that it is not zoned for? That's the discussion to be had. My personal stance is that if this was not an existing building and they were looking to build a garage, this wouldn't even be a discussion. The whole point is that the particular things of this particular property are that it is already an existing automotive shop, and is it an unreasonable use to do it in an existing automotive shop? I would think that we could probably come to some sort of terms where we're meeting the intent of the idea. We don't have this gigantic automotive dealership where there's 20 or 30 cars all piled up outside in a lot. He's doing maintenance in this facility. There is some maintenance that's already allowed in this area, whether it's specifically recreational vehicle. We can tease that out with some more detail here. But I guess the question I'm proposing is everybody's mind made up here, or is there more discussion to be had?
I think it's fine. I guess the one question I would have is, do we know, so there's drains in the floor, do we know where those drains go?
I believe those drains were removed.
They were removed.
So they are,
They were removed before, and then there was an opening. Oh, can you hear me? They were removed, and there was a hole in the floor that was filled with concrete.
so it's all solid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brian?
If we are, I don't know, we could put some restrictions on it. We could, X amount of cars only are allowed to park in this lot, so they have to be registered. It's probably all town ordinances anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I would,
Obviously, he's gonna bring the car in, see what it needs. He's gonna push it outside, order parts. Who knows how long the parts are gonna take? So we might want to think about putting a restriction on how many cars he can store outside at a time. If we could do that. I don't know if we can do that.
we can put any qualifier on a case that we deem fit to make it fit for our community and fit for what's being asked and fit for the property. So if that's something the board entertains a discussion, we can tease that out. We can kick this back to any other board that we think it should go to before. We can put any qualifier on this that we would like as a board that makes it fit within our community and the goals and the piece of property and that individual's use of their property, and then the long term. Because again, this isn't just about Mr. Pellerin. This is about that piece of property, and whatever we allow that piece of property to do carries on beyond his selling it. You know, I'm not saying he's doing this, chooses to sell it tomorrow, the piece of property retains whatever we allow. So that's the nuance in all of it, to suss it out. And if the board feels like there isn't a discussion to be had here, then we don't need to have the discussion. But
I believe it's true that if an exception or a variance was granted, it would still require going to the planning board. There would be a change of use, and I believe a change of use would in fact require a different or review by the planning board for a site plan. When we had the original hearing, I had a whole series of issues, including the parking of vehicles, oil water separators. I cannot even imagine having a shop without an oil water separator, even on the inside of the building. At this point, and whether or not the parking lot's going to be paved, how the slope of the parking lot, how many vehicles. I mean, there's a whole long list of things, but I'm not so sure it would be up to this group right now to go ahead and try to compile a complete list of things that we think would be essential on the property. I think that would be the job of the planning board.
And we could even if it didn't need to go to planning board, because of all the things you mentioned, we can approve this with the asterisk of like, this has got to go back to planning. This has got to get teased out on all the stuff that you're talking about that's outside of the purview of this. I'm thinking of some cases where we approved something downtown where we had a lot of questions about parking, and basically like, we don't know enough of the information about parking. We can't answer this. You know, we approve this on the condition that it goes back to planning and they look at all of the parking stuff, which is what they do, and they're also on board with it. So I absolutely, there are a ton of things that it needs to go back and needs to have extra eyes look at and extra eyes tease through the details of it to make sure that it crosses everything.
And we could approve this with those conditions on it, just like should it go to commission, conservation, being so close
to the river. Yeah.
So close to the river.
For sure.
So should it go to the conservation and we get a report from them, you know, with their concerns.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Well, and I think that as far as the town is concerned, on conservation, there would have to be an oil water separator. And I believe that the current requirements would also include paving of the entire premises.
And that would be planning
and,
problems.
and some sort of catch basin and drain. So,
but
if it goes back to conservation and goes to the planning board.
right. Alls we would be doing is approving that he could do it, given a variance in that zoning, that he could do it, contingent on this is what conservation wants, this is what planning. He's got to meet those requirements
Doing it right.
to do it right.
Right within the confines of what the.
Right.
Now, aren't there garages in town that aren't doing that? Like, I mean, Rusty's isn't paved.
I don't know the answer to that.
But
As far as like what the conditions are. That being said, just because another property isn't doing it right doesn't mean that we don't have to say,
From
hey,
here
you're going to do
forward,
this in a place where this isn't even really okay. This isn't in the normal confines of it. If you're going to do it, we want all of these criteria met.
I think that's,
But
we'll approve it and send it to.
On the other hand, all of this is a moot point if we don't approve the variance.
Correct.
Also, for sure. We'll get to public comment in just a second. Yeah, for sure. This is all this is only if we agree that we can come to terms that a majority of the group here agrees makes sense.
To approve the variance, but with these conditions, that's got to go to conservation, it's got to go to planning.
Sure. Yeah. Right. My hang up on this particular piece of property is, I mean, it's all like, it's not doing this, but it's not taking a piece of property in a building that wasn't already a maintenance place. It wasn't already doing those sorts of things. And allowing, taking a residential building and turning it into that. We're talking about a place that is already a maintenance facility if it's for lawnmowers, and maybe allowing for a small use to keep an employee occupied in the non-landscaping months. I can understand the drive for that. And it appears to me to be a reasonable use of the property. But that being said, I'm one person and one person's outlook.
Well, in another life, so to speak, I had an application in front of the ZBA for the convertible use of using an automobile repair facility, which is in the downtown zone, and adding small engine repair and lawnmower repair. And that was not considered to be allowable within the zone and was turned down. That was with, and you can look it up, Lenny Pickering's use of the 307 Main Street building. Different zone.
That's the catch with the zoning
it's the conversion.
Every
of the
case.
use,
Every case is unique.
different
Yeah.
and unique. I understand, but it's a conversion of use, which is similar.
Yeah.
And I can understand your point, but I'm mentioning that my experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not easy. We wouldn't be here if this was easy. It wouldn't be we wouldn't have a discussion to have if it was
Right.
easy.
My thoughts on it is like what you were saying. It's already, I don't want to call it a commercial building, but it's not
It
a
is a commercial building.
It is a commercial building in multi-use. It's not a residential building. You do have residents on either side, but they didn't oppose to any objection to Mr. Pellerin doing this.
The landscape.
Yeah, landscape, right. Sorry. Yeah.
However, Mr. Mayor started his business back in the 1980s. They didn't even designate this as a mixed-use district until 2005.
Right.
I have done my research.
Yeah.
And it was even taken out of service as a welding shop for a period of time, and then went back in for a while after 2009. And that's when it was made very clear that the only thing that he could really do at that time was the welding kind of stuff and not other kinds of auto repair, because it was contrary at that time to the ordinances.
It is contrary to the ordinances. That's why it's here. That's the crux of it.
The other thing too, I was looking through the 2009 stuff, and they were concerned about the traffic there, which I did. I pulled in and checked the place out, and turning left out of there is it's pretty intense. There's a lot of, I mean, granted it was 5-6 o'clock, but just, food for thought. I don't know if that's particularly an issue, but something to think about.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a valid point. I have another thing I got to read in here once we get to public comment. But I mean, that's the other half of the conversation is how much traffic is this really, what is if it's a dealership, that's got a lot of traffic to it. If this is, you can work on a car or two, that's not generating a boatload of traffic in and out of that particular lot.
Yeah.
I would imagine that on a busy landscape day, he's got more traffic and trucks and trailers going in and out than he would on a late season automotive plan here. I don't know for sure, but
Yeah, I'm just, this is a small scale setup that I'm looking for. I'm not looking for any monstrosity of a repair shop by any means, just for the record.
For sure. Yeah, the catch just being that once you move on from it, this still is married to that property. And so we need to make sure that we put the boxes, if we choose to do this, if we agree this makes sense, put the boxes around it that carries intelligently into the future.
Doesn't the state also have purview over repair shops? Isn't there a permit for a repair shop? Or am I thinking just the auto dealership side of things that you need a permit for that? Could you state that in the record, please?
Sorry. Yeah, like the new one that went up, Honda, was it Hyundai? They, it's required on a state level from them. Yeah.
State gets involved if he's going to become an inspection station.
Yeah.
Is everyone good if we open public comment up? There's a letter to read. I believe he's got something to say. Everyone on board with that? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll take public comment. That letter down.
So, you want to stand at the podium or?
No,
That's fine. Okay.
just you got to say who you are into the record.
So, John Scanlon, resident. I have my lot abuts Morrison Ave as well as Main Street. All is fine with having an auto repair shop. The problem is that the location of it. We have a master plan where we spend a lot of time looking at the future of Tilton and how it would grow properly and make it a nice place to live. That area is residential. It's all residential. The neighbors that all abut it are all residential, and they all purchased their homes within the last 10 years, expecting that this was just going to be, either the light stuff, and actually in the last 10 years, there wasn't any repairs. I don't believe. I think Mayor's was finishing up. But one of the things in the 30 years that I've lived there, there has never, ever been an automotive repair shop there, ever. It's always been real light stuff, quiet, not much traffic. and do that. Although the front, Mr. Pellerin keeps a very nice lot out front. It does look nice. He does keep things orderly. However, coming down Morrison Ave, and uh, it's a clear view of the whole back side of the lot where vehicles would be stored in various conditions. The neighbors to the would be west, or yeah, to the west side, the garage doors open right up to their house that lives right there. So any noises in there and that would also be making noise into the residential area. They purchased their home when it was a mixed use and those things weren't allowed. So the crux of it are that, yes, it may seem like a good use for his property, but it does devaluate the values of the residential properties around it because nobody expected to be buying a house that was going to be allowed to have automotive repairs next to it. Now, although his is small scale, once you open the door for that, somebody else could come in and say, well, they just want to rebuild it or whatever, and it can grow from there. So there's no control on that. You can't, once you open that door, it's hard to close it.
I apologize. That's not, we can confine this to however we see fit, and any change outside of that, they'd have to come back to the board to ask for an increase of use. So this wouldn't be a case where it could just open wide up.
On top of having it's completely visible in the back by the abutters and the neighbors and all the residents who travel down Morrison Ave, there's also the scenic trail that's right behind it, which is a very nice protected area. They do a good job to keep it nice and neat and clean, and the rural aspects of the trail and the nature and wildlife that's down through there. I think that's pretty much covered by one, but it's a neighborhood. And the other part of it is once you allow one to do this, how are you going to say, because my home, once they did repairs there, so can I start doing that? And where does it stop?
Just
there's
for a point of
also,
order here, that's also not how zoning works. Precedent is not established in zoning. Each case is taken in an individuality. Court case after court case upholds that. So another person could come to us and there would be a different circumstance, and we would absolutely, as a board, not necessarily us, the next board, be able to say, no, that's not a thing. There is no precedent established in zoning.
Okay, so I'm just going to reiterate that the mixed-use zone, we've tried to make a boundary on where residents start and the rural character is, and do that. It's visible in the back for all of it. Automobile does make noises, and I don't feel it's a good use for that piece of property to reduce property values around it. I think if all of you had a garage that opened up next to you, you'd feel the same.
Thank you. We also have a letter from Nathan, I hope I say this last name right, Langione, from 8 Winter Street in Tilton. He writes, hello, I will not be able to attend the zoning board public hearing this evening, but I wanted to comment on the case. Given how bad existing traffic conditions on East Main Street are from the railroad crossing to Lowe's Drive, I do not believe it's the best interest of the town to increase the number of businesses on that stretch of road. An increase in vehicle traffic, especially left-turning vehicles, could lead to more congestion. Also, tow trucks and flatbeds entering and exiting the property could be an issue given how close it is to where the lane numbers change for east and westbound traffic. That being said, I see no issue with allowing an auto shop to be built on the property for the personal use of the property owner or the existing business located on the property. Best, Nathan Langione, 8 Winter Street, Tilton, New Hampshire.
Were notices sent out to the neighbors again for all the abutters for the rehearing? So, okay. So, okay. So evidently they don't have any issues, or they'd be here.
I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with the sentiment that an unchecked automotive repair shop with unlimited ability to do whatever it wanted to do in growth is unreasonable. The question is, do we as a board think we can come to a point where we're allowing the individual the use of his property that fits the rest of it. And I don't know the answer to that. That's what we're all here to discuss. And if there isn't, then there isn't. That's the board doing what the board does.
So ways to limit it would be either amount of cars in the lot. I mean, what
Seasons
else?
that he can do the
Certain
work. One could
seasons,
do the work in.
What else?
There's practically
Yeah.
carte blanche that you could come up with.
So, there's, you plan on using the other garage bays for landscaping still, right?
Yeah, 2 bays
There's 2 bays. One would be,
for landscaping.
one's landscaping and one is for car repair. Yeah. So, I mean, how many cars can you repair in a day?
I think the big concern that is legitimate is that there's a big pile of cars sitting in the lot waiting to be worked on, while this one bay is available to do the work in. And that's a totally legitimate concern. That's would not be fitting of our community at all.
Plus concern is noise. Saturday or Sunday, the air wrenches and air guns going over there, and the neighbors would have to listen to that. So that's a consideration they have to think of too.
Having done landscaping though, I mean, you're taking the blades off the mowers, sharpening it, there's grinding and, potentially less with landscaping, but I feel like it's probably similar. It, I mean, if it's just one garage bay, I feel like just limiting the amount of cars on the premise is a good move.
My concern is that I don't want East Main Street to start looking like West Main Street. And anyone who drives through West Main Street, there are multiple repair shops, multiple vehicles all over the place. And I guess there's a piece of me that says, once you open the door and you give permission for this, I don't think that down the road, especially given how it's been very difficult to enforce controls over some of the businesses on West Main Street, how we're going to be able to insist that certain conditions and limits to the number of cars that can be parked there. I just don't see how we were able to do that. In my estimation, once you give somebody permission to do it in that area, then you could have to. Anyway, I'm done.
No, please speak it.
Well,
I think it's just the wrong direction to go for that neighborhood. I do.
Matt, one of the things we had, if you remember, we had this meeting with the selectmen about communications. And one of the major complaints we had was that the codes enforcement officer was not fulfilling a lot of the requirements of following through on any code violations. So I think Chuck does have a valid point that we could put restrictions on. Planning could put restrictions on. Conservation could put restrictions on. But Mr. Pellerin could follow through with that. But the next person could be different.
I totally understand that. And I think that is a problem that needs to be sorted out, not at this board, because then the argument becomes don't ever approve any zoning request ever, because then they'll just never do what they said they were going to do in the zoning approval. And now we don't ever approve anything because the lean-to we allowed someone to do off their shed, as long as it stayed this side, they're like, wow, there's no code enforcement, so I'll go build it whatever size I want to build it. So I personally hesitate to that, because that's not the zoning board's problem that the town doesn't adequately provide enough hours or staffing to its code enforcement. If there are code enforcement violations happening to what the boards at the various planning and zoning boards approve, then the town has to go sort that out at another angle. And it's absolutely a problem that has to be addressed. I just don't think that it's our purview to factor that into whether or not we do this. That's my personal stance on that. But that's just me. You're right. It's like, if we're going to let people work on, we're going to be a flexible town and let people work in things, and you have to hold people accountable what they say they're going to do, for sure. I don't know if there's any more discussion to be had. We could make a motion. We can go through it here.
It's the only way we're gonna know. Make a motion, see where we stand.
I would really like to, if we're going to make a motion on something, that we've teased out some real hard boxes around it. So I don't know what that looks like to you guys. If you don't think that we can get there on your own personal stance, that's fine. We don't need to spend time teasing it out if the board doesn't feel like they're going to get into a spot where they feel comfortable with it.
I don't think tonight is the time that we can come out with every little condition that we think ought to be placed on the lot if a variance should be granted. The Conservation Commission, as you probably well know, is advisory in nature and cannot make decisions. All they can do is advise. At this point, if you go ahead and grant the variance, it doesn't do any good for them to advise anyone but the planning board. And at this point in time, the planning board seems to me like to be the only one who can impose any kind of restrictions. And I would think that recommendations could be outside of that and say, pending approval by the planning board. And then we could, whether or not it is right now or after it goes to the Conservation Commission, and then let the planning board make that. But I don't think we can tonight put the kind of conditions on it, or if you want to sit here for another hour or two, we can work on a whole laundry list of things. But it's people like the Conservation and Planning Board that are probably more keyed into the kind of conditions that would be important.
For sure.
Agree.
We've definitely kicked cases back and said, this has got to go to planning, and planning's got to planning has to look at this before, we could take a stance. And if that's.
Well, what position does that leave the town if we approve a variance and say, but you've got to go to planning? Now, what position does that put planning in so far as imposing conditions? If in fact, now all of a sudden, the owner, Mr. Pellerin, can get out of the planning board and say, well, I've got my variance now. I can do auto repair work.
The variance is contingent on planning board approval. So he doesn't have his variance. He has a contingent variance pending the next step in the process. Like we've passed variances in the past, you're waiting for something to shake out in time. So we'll do this contingent on feedback from the state. We'll do this contingent on whatever the qualifier is.
So at this point, if the planning board, if we were to say we will provide you with conditional approval, not approval.
I don't know. I just don't know it is conditional by nature of having the asterisk of you need to go do this step, but we might be getting a little lost in the nuance of the verbiage, but.
Well, usually the planning board goes to gets the request going to the Conservation Commission first. So in order to get these steps in order, it's just so that everybody understands we're all on the same page. That's all.
Oh, yeah. We could absolutely say, contingent on this going to conservation and planning. That is something we can do if that is what we want as a board. But he wouldn't have the variance if we put on the qualifier of it needs to be approved by these other boards. He would only have the variance if the boards approve it. That's all. I'm not mistaken on that, correct? Okay.
I had essentially a question from Matt for you. If an approval were done, would it then have to meet all current codes? For instance, like fire safety code, I haven't been in. I don't know if it's got fire coded sheetrock in there. I know when I looked at putting a parking garage in one building in town, they said that it needed to be sprinklered. I don't know what this code would be if I don't know what the rest of the building is used for as like residence. And that was the instance of what the other rest of the building is used for.
Right.
So if it has to meet all current codes, that's another another thing that would be another hurdle to go over.
Right.
Is that correct?
That is my understanding.
Yes.
I'm going to defer.
And that would be planning.
All businesses in town.
Okay.
So if you were to approve this variance contingent on the planning board, that's where the planning board will be coming in if he needs, what he needs to bring it up to code for an automobile shop. That's above us is just the multi-use variance to allow it. And then it's going to be planning board to come up with their restrictions, telling what he needs to do to bring it up to code. And
To be clear, I'm not trying to tell you that we should approve this.
No.
All I'm trying to say is these are what our options are as a board going through these cases, is that if you see a path where you're like, oh, this kind of makes sense for this property, but I have all these concerns, we can tack a laundry list of requirements on to allow this or any other project to happen. We can even just say, no, you have to go to the fire department and get a specific qualification from the fire department on this, outside of what the town normally requires. You kind of have that purview to do whatever the board needs to do to make sure that we're doing this smart and right for the property owner and right for the town.
Right, and that's my thought process of the whole concept is I'm relatively new in this position, and I wanted to get a sense for myself of what the next steps would be.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you.
Yes, I feel comfortable saying, granting the variance and coming up with the restrictions, just us, or passing it to planning. Either one, I'm comfortable with either.
To me, it kind of needs both. We got to put
We
there's
put
a big thing. I
restrictions
think we
and
got
then
to
send
limit
it
the
to
number of
planning.
cars right off the bat. I
Yeah.
don't know what a reasonable number of cars is. But on top of having it go to planning, we've got to put a cap on how many vehicles this is able to do. If this is really, he wants to do it as a side gig to keep his regular maintenance guy on some steady work, he doesn't need very many cars around to do that. And it maintains the nature of the community by not turning it into a car repair lot in West Main Street, to Chuck's point. That's a big thing for me on this, is we'd have to come to something on that.
So right now you want to come up with a number? Is that what you're asking us to do?
At least have a discussion about it. If we don't think we can come up with a number and we need to table this, then that's what we need to do.
That point, it is a plan under the planning department's purview to set the number of parking spaces they deem necessary, things like that. That's not a zoning board issue.
Parking spaces, not necessarily how many cars he's allowed to have as a
In cars,
and
number
cars.
of cars.
Right. Planning could have a say on that. I mean, we could also put a qualifier on it, but okay, planning could also do it. If we need more time to think about, I mean, this is on us as a board to do whatever we deem due diligence for it.
Yeah.
But
so will this automatically go to planning? If we approve the variance, is the next step planning? We have to deem it necessary. Okay.
yeah, for sure.
Just the way things work. Yeah, a variance can be heard before or after planning. It doesn't matter which order they go in. So whatever happens, it still have to go through planning, and they will make everything. You just say that that's allowed, and then planning make sure that if it's fire, safety, and all those codes. So as long as you just say, we're going to allow it, then planning takes over and decides all this stuff for it. I'm not sure if you can put a future thing that it's only for the present owner or something, but I believe it comes back to site plan again. If it changes ownership, they don't run with the property.
I think they do run with the property. I think perhaps could be a sort of caveat with that.
Yeah, that was my understanding, is the variance goes with the property, which is one of the big reasons why like a number of cars limit for us is important to me to maintain what Chuck said about not letting it turn into something down the road, this would have to be basically box it in so that this works for Mr. Pellerin and the property owner, not that it turns into an auto dealership and an auto repair shop infinitely down the road. That's my personal view on it.
Well, if I may speak again, one of the, I have a number of different properties that I'm familiar with, and one of the ones that I have has a zoning variance restriction in time. So after 10 years, it has to be renewed. And that's another thing that I'm familiar with, and I think we can do the same
Yes.
thing here in
Yes.
Tilton.
Yes.
That's in a different jurisdiction.
So there's a time limit that it doesn't, there's an innate time limit, and I apologize, I don't remember the time, where if we grant this variance and he never uses it, it expires on its own. We can also put a time limit as a use of this, like this is a variance, you can do this for, I'm just pulling numbers out, you can do this for 5 years, and then at 5 years, you have to come back and reapply for the variance.
Could we do that with ownership? So if he were to sell it?
I don't know the answer to that.
Apparently not.
No.
It's usually tied to a property, not an owner. So you can put a time limit on the property. You can do this with this property for 5 years and come back and reapply. It's my understanding, but not to the owner. I mean, maybe you could put a qualifier on the change of ownership. I don't know. That gets a little. But I still think that if we don't think that it's okay for the property, we shouldn't do it for the person. We should do it for the property and the proposed use of the property.
It's the property and the use of the property.
Not the person.
I think
who
the
wants to do it.
restrictions will make it so, I mean, the curb appeal now is great. It looks great down there. I don't anticipate an issue, but yeah, in the future, it could be an issue, but our restrictions could make it so it's not.
Ideally.
Yeah.
I have no problem personally with seeing a vehicle inside that building being worked on. However, I also recently did some business up at Northeast Tire, and while I dropped my car off in the parking lot, I must have seen at least 6 or 8 vehicles from couples. And those were there for work or inspection or whatever. And one of the things I think is going to be very, very difficult is there's a difference between having 1 or 2 cars in there being worked on, then all of a sudden somebody who's running a used car dealership coming over and dropping off a whole bunch of cars, and the next thing you know, it is going to start looking like West Main Street. So long as there are some definite conditions attached, I can understand, but I'll leave it at that.
So maybe we start writing down some of the conditions that we can.
Yeah. I think that's
That way there we can.
Well, that presupposes that there is an approval, that we'd have conditions.
Well,
I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Is put some of the conditions on paper that potentially would be.
And then put it to a vote, and if
And
it
then,
fails,
and then put it to a vote.
Right.
And then
yes,
I-
everyone knows what the
I
conditions
understand
are.
now.
We've got this kind of nebulous thing that we haven't nailed down. I think you're trying
Okay.
to
Right.
nail something down. It sounds like everybody agrees that no matter what, this, even if it has to go to planning anyways, we need to put a big old asterisk on the side of it that it goes to
There
planning.
it goes to planning. And I know conservation, I think it should go to them. I know they can just,
They're based on the meeting last week, I think planning is supposed to send conservation.
yep.
We
stuff
can still
before,
say,
Yeah,
this
we
has
can
got to
say
go
it.
to conservation first. I mean, I
Yeah.
totally
To get their
appreciate this
input,
supposed
they,
to be,
yeah.
I think, do both.
They meet next Monday night.
Conservation meets next Monday night? Okay. I mean, to me, not that, I'm not trying to be respectful of the applicant's time, but I mean, if it takes it a couple extra months to get to success to all the boards, I mean, so be it. It is what it is. We still want to make sure that it gets to the.
Restriction on how many cars should be allowed to be parked outside.
Yeah.
How many?
That's not to include his vehicles, right?
I would imagine these are vehicles associated with the auto repair. I mean, 2 is the number that comes to my mind. I don't know if that's wildly unreasonable. I don't know.
I was thinking it's a little low.
It's low.
Yeah.
I don't.
Just because if it's a quick repair, I feel like you could probably get 5, 6, 7 cars done in a day, right?
It depends what the repair,
Right.
It almost
if it's
kind of is like it's true, but it almost is more well, like
how far are we
how
getting
far
here?
this
Yeah.
is. We're the ones that are removing, like allowing this non-conforming use.
I mean, is
And-
there's some obviously do a restriction of the cars in the parking lot, but some restriction on maybe like wrecked vehicles or something, just for so the neighbors don't have to look over. I'm just picturing like I don't know, like the police car in front of Rusty's, like okay, this totaled car that's just sitting there, now it's in their backyard or something. But yeah, sorry, not to get off topic from the
Yeah, to me,
number,
but like 2 cars, is the like this allows some vehicles in and out. It doesn't allow for an accumulation of vehicles in various states of repair. It gives the property owner, this use of his property that he's looking for. I don't know. It's not just me though.
Yeah, I can just ask something.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't hold much there anyways, right? I got landscape trucks and trailers, right? I'm not looking to jam up that operation or anything like that. Not looking to make the place look jammed. My thought initially was, there couldn't be any more than say 5 vehicles at any given time. So like if 5 and say I couldn't have, like, if I can get 1 or 2 inside, I could only have 3 outside, say tops. It could never exceed 5. And then I couldn't get another one in until the other one was returned. So because I don't want a parking lot full of stuff either. Again, this is just small time. This isn't, we're not doing oil changes. You know what I mean? We're not getting into a bunch of stuff like that. More simple repairs. That's all we're trying to do here. I just want to, I don't know if that helps.
Yep.
I'm just trying to be helpful.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I guess auto repair to me could mean a lot of things, and thank you for your honesty about suggesting that you are not interested in doing oil changes. I'm not sure that we could put a restriction on it necessarily that would say no oil changes. But that could happen. It could be work on an engine. If there's work on an engine, you do have to drain the oil out of it. So let's just suggest that could happen. But I'm also wondering, because I have also seen places that do auto body work and some of those things. And I've also seen, and we've seen it down on West Main Street, where people have brought in cars in very bad repair and they bring them in for use of parts. And so there is still that side of the component, not just simply somebody who brings it in and says, well, okay, I need new brakes today or whatever it might be. So I think we could sit here for hours coming up with lists, and I'm not sure that that's our job tonight, rather than trying to come up and let the planning board do its job.
That is the will of what the board here wishes. I'm inclined. I don't want to spend my entire night coming up with an endless list. I'm with you on that, Chuck. I'm also not inclined to make sure that, if we're going to approve this, that we make sure that we are approving what we think we're approving. So I'm a little bit on both sides of what Chuck is saying. I agree. I don't really want to tease out every last little detail.
Yeah.
But at the same token, I want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to this, if it's something that we choose to approve or not, to approve. That's all.
It just had Article 9.2.
He just, Mr. Scanlon brought up 9.2 of just non-conforming use zoning ordinance. The Board of Adjustment may order the issuance of a permit for any non-conforming use to be changed to another non-conforming use not substantially different in its purpose and manner of application, and no more harmful or objectionable to the neighborhood, provided that the building involved shall neither be structurally altered or enlarged to an extent in the aggregate greater than 20% in volume and 50% of the assessed value of the building and land as the date of passage of this ordinance. The extension must be of the same or better type of material or construction as the original building. No non-conforming use, if once changed to a use permitted in the district in which located, shall be changed back to a non-conforming use. I mean, I guess we're not talking about expanding the size of this building here, so I don't understand.
No, the part in the brackets.
No non-conforming use, if once changed to a use permitted in the district in which it is located, shall be changed back to a non-conforming use. I mean, I think that this is what they're at the zoning board for. Is this not the zoning regulations? So it's like what you have to do within the zoning. So if he went to the town, correct me if I'm wrong here, he goes to the town and he wants to change the use of this. It was once non-conforming, is now not non-conforming, or now is conforming, and he wants to go back to unconforming. He can't do that without a variance. That's how I understand this. Right? Isn't this the one that he's asking for a variance from? 7, yeah. I mean, I guess I don't understand the question. I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding this. If we grant non-conforming uses all the time, or whatever, we don't grant them all the time, we hear them all the time. My understanding is this is the zoning ordinance, so this is what you have to follow. And if you want to go away from the zoning ordinance, it says Article 9, non-conforming uses. 9.1, any lawful building or use of a building or premise or part thereof in existence previous to the passage of this ordinance may be continued through such bill. This isn't about how the zoning board operates. This is just the zoning ordinance of the town. Would anyone else like to read this? Make sure that they're understanding this the same that I am. Oops, sorry, Jim. We digress there.
Yeah, no non-conforming use, if once changed to a use permitted in the district in which it's located, shall be changed back to non-conforming use. I think this is just in regards to.
That's the zoning or that's the zoning. I mean, sorry, the one page, no context. I don't know what it came from.
10.
Right, so those are the zoning regulations. So if you want to do something that doesn't fall into the zoning regulations, you have to bring it before the zoning board.
Yeah, the board does anything that doesn't allow.
Right, if there's somebody who's trying to do something that the zoning regulations don't allow,
that's why we're
it
here.
comes before the zoning board.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that passage though is just in regards to expanding buildings.
A non-conforming use. If you have a non-conforming use building
and you want
to expand it,
yeah,
that's the parameters there. And if you had a business that was once not conforming and then it got moved to conforming, you can't make it non-conforming again under the zoning ordinance without a variance.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to read it?
So,
yeah.
So in trying to get a handle on this, if this is a current non-conforming use and it's being made into another non-conforming use, that would be allowed by that's what we do as a zoning board.
Anybody who's trying to do something in the town that doesn't follow the strict written zoning requirements of the town has to come before the zoning board and ask for a variance from them.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Even if they're existing non-conforming.
If they're existing non-conforming, they don't have to come to the zoning board unless they were going to change something about it. Am I right on that?
They're changing the use. So,
right.
So it's not that, it's the converse of that.
Kinda, yes, I think I'm on the same page.
Yeah.
I think. I don't want to steal that from you.
So what do we have on the list so
So
far?
that's all
it's
I
going-
wanted was the planning get involved, conservation get involved, and the amount of cars outside. That's all I have on it.
That's, yeah, when we have not lined up, come to a consensus on number of cars.
I'm comfortable with 5.
Should we say 5 vehicles in any state? To kind of address, oh, well, I've got 5 roadworthy vehicles and 105 pieces of vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, what
this is not against you, Mr. Pellerin. This is against the property and making sure the property maintains its.
What constitutes a car? How much can you take off and it's still a car?
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
I'm not doing auto body, so we're not replacing fenders. A car that comes in that's crashed, that's not it. We're not touching that stuff. That's not what I'm looking to accomplish here. Just so you guys, it's a lot more narrowed down to, new joints, bearings, brakes, you know what I mean? Some starter, simple stuff. Just for the record, okay?
So the state law covers that for you already. It states that you can have no more than 2 unregistered cars or not fit for highway. All those things are always addressed at the planning board.
Yep.
They'll do site plan.
Covered. So that answers our question there.
Would
Thank you.
planning also take care of, or something that we could write in is, was it Morrison? Was the name of that road right there?
Yes.
Mr. Pellerin mentioned maybe some arborvitaes or something to dress that up so you couldn't look in where his trucks are parked now, to make it more appealing to the people driving down that road there. It might be more appealing to put some shrubbery, arborvitaes, whatever, so the people driving down that road don't have to look at the cars, or even then the landscaping trucks and the salt, and even though he keeps it very nice and neat.
I think maybe to help expedite things for Mr. Pellerin, that tomorrow night the planning board meets conceptual. The next meeting.
And planning may come up with that.
Yeah,
Sure,
to
sure,
do
planning
that and to come in and do a conceptual and people throw out ideas and do that. And then that way you can have your site plan. You won't have to come back multiple times. You would just, the next meeting you'd have your site plan. You could, adapt it to the way you see that the planning board's going to go on it.
Yeah, that's between that.
Conceptual is great for that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a problem if we're like double crossing our T's. Even if planning covers things and we tie it to the variance, I don't think that there's an issue with that. My personal opinion is there is an issue. Even if planning is going to cover that they can't have so many vehicles, it's even better if we spell it out extra in the variance that you can only have so many vehicles, or that we're going to fix landscaping. Because if this is a contingent to us on it being approval, there's nothing saying the planning will think that that's something that has to happen. I'm
thinking we should still put something in about non-running vehicles. Do we know where it's
state law.
Yeah.
and it's for specific zoning ordinances? I'm just thinking of other car places I know that have multiple wrecked cars. How do they get around that?
To Steve's point, there is a loophole, and that is that it's not considered a vehicle if there's no engine in it. Because my neighbor, who's passed on, has multiple vehicles around his farm property, and none of them have an engine. And I think that's the loophole with the state law.
It does, no, it covers.
Oh,
I also would like to see, if there are 2 bays that it could be doing mechanical work, I think that they should be required to have an oil water separator inside the building to catch any fluids in case that they come out of the vehicles. And if the drainage cannot be so done as to, so that one oil water separator would cover each bay, then one should be installed in each bay. I'm not trying to cost Mr. Pellerin money, but I'm just trying to think of the
No,
there are those fluids that will come out of vehicles, especially when you're working on them.
And I guess my question is that something that would come out of the conservation's report to the planning board?
On the other hand, if you don't put it in, the planning board may opt not to do it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
No. It's fine.
Okay, so 5 vehicles in any state is kind of where we're at. No more than 5 vehicles of any state for auto repair. Fuel water separator for each bay or the equivalent, and then pending planning board and conservation board.
Do you need to specify that there will be no auto body work done?
If we want.
If we want.
Sure.
What's the reasoning, your reasoning for restricting that? Just the noise?
Oh, I don't actually care if somebody removes a dent. That's not small dents, but if when you get into taking fenders off and all that stuff, you have to have parts, you have to have a place to store them. You're buying sometimes fenders and body parts and truck beds and all that stuff, and that's just going to be more junk in the yard. Or the other thing is that, but I know that it'll come up will be for trash and whether or not it's going to be in an area where it's going to be covered and whether or not, there could be storage of any kind of parts out on the parking lot or are we referring, because when you're talking about parts, if you're not having a motor in something, you could say, well, there's a pickup truck body and we're going to be putting that on. Some of that can be auto body work and some might be just plain mechanical work.
And then if you move to an auto body use, one of the things that can be done is a paint booth. And once you move to paint, now you have another issue with the neighbors because now you have aerosols,
Chemicals.
and the chemicals, and they either need to be collected or processed. So
Makes sense.
a couple of reasons for not including it.
And the only reason we're thinking about tying that into this is because it's tied to the property. If Mr. Pellerin decided to sell the property in 5 years, 10 years, someone else goes in there. If it's not in there, that they can't have.
Right.
So
Makes sense.
Right. Unless there's more discussion to be had, usually we make motions in the affirmative, whether or not that's how you're intending to vote, just for the sake of
Correct.
consistency.
Affirmative.
So,
Yep.
even if you didn't want to vote for a motion, we usually make motions. I make a motion to approve, even if you're going to vote against it, just for the sake of keeping everything nice and consistent and everyone on the same page when it comes time for people to be ready to make motions. Right now, we have pending planning board review, pending conservation review, no more than 5 vehicles of any state for auto repair, landscaping on Morrison to improve curb appeal, fuel water separator, geez, I can speak, I apologize. Fuel water separator for each bay or the equivalent, and no auto body work to be done. People are at a point where they would like a motion to be made, but it feels like a lot. I can do it. I usually try not to make motions, but I'll do it just because I have the stuff in front of me.
Just one change is that I believe Chuck had said that if one oil water separator for the building could be done, then it would be one, or he's not required to put 2 in.
I should say for each bay or the equivalent.
Or
So long as both bays can be drained into a oil water
into one.
separator, so long as the drainage will accommodate one, that would be, I think, sufficient.
Say
But
a
make sure that
fuel water-
each bay is properly drained into an oil water separator might be easier.
Yeah.
It's only one bay that would be dedicated, because the other. Sorry, I just.
for you right now.
Yes, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But the other bay is too small, fitting to the car in it.
So,
That, John.
oh, yep.
Just curious, and you get. That shall only be one bay and that would carry with full with any lot. You know,
That is a great recommendation. How does everybody?
So only one bay could be used for auto repair work.
Correct.
I believe that bay already has a lift.
Okay. Uh, May I ask Francois a question? Was that lift, this will probably come up with conservation, was that a lift that was based on the concrete, or was that a in-ground lift? A pneumatic in-ground lift? Do you know?
I am not sure. I know that it was old.
Okay. Okay.
Was the piston in the ground?
What's that?
Was the piston in the ground? Or was it 2 or 4 posts on top of the concrete? You said there was a hole that got.
It might have been in the ground. I'm not 100% on it though. I had, when we got the place, we had various employees in there. We were just going through it, and we had a trip hazard, and we wanted to get rid of it and cover it. You know what I mean? I'd have to put my eyes on it again to give you a 100% answer. But I guess there was no bolts coming out of the ground.
Gotta read it in the
Sorry,
back, yeah.
there was no bolts coming out of the ground. So
Right. Okay. So when it was down, all there was it was almost flush with the ground. It was a trip hazard. There wasn't big pillars or posts.
yeah, it was set up. And I want to say the gentleman that owned it right before me took it down, and it was laying on the ground when we got it,
Okay.
when we walked into the place. So, you know what I mean? I didn't, it was, the unit was on the ground and we removed it. So I couldn't tell you how it was installed previously. I know what the newer ones look like, how they were installed. I couldn't tell you about this
Yep.
one. I think it's very old.
I don't mind making the motion if I can read all that.
Can you read my chicken scratch?
Okay. I make a motion to approve ZBA 23-14 to allow an automotive repair facility in a mixed-use district where automotive repair is not allowed, with the following conditions: pending planning board review, pending conservation board review, number of vehicles 5 of any state for auto repair, landscape, Morrison Street Road to improve curb appeal, fuel water separator, 1 bay, each bay or equivalent, no auto body work to be done, only 1 bay may be used for auto repair work and must be drained.
By A.
Oh, must be drained by a fuel water separator.
All right, motion's been made. Any seconds?
I second.
Made and seconded. Or any further discussion on it? Oh, any other qualifiers people want to put in on this? Anything else that anyone feels we're missing? No? All right. I guess, should we do a
Roll call.
roll call vote? We do a roll call vote? All right, I'm sorry, I don't remember everybody's last name. Steve Bunce?
Aye. Yeah, is that what you say? Aye.
Yes, yeah, that works.
Aye.
Jim Crosby?
Again, as I stated in the original application, when it came before it, I have had economic relationships with Mr. Pellerin, hired him in a number of instances, will probably hire him again. I wish to abstain.
Sounds good.
I was here to make sure that there was a quorum.
Thank you. Jim Crosby abstains. Matt Gilman? Oh, you look like you're about to talk. Aye. Brian Pease?
Aye.
Chuck Mitchell?
No.
3 yeas, 1 abstain, and Chuck Mitchell, 1 nay. That one passes with 3. Thank you for coming in. We still have the meeting minutes from last meeting.
Were they corrected?
I don't think they were corrected.
I haven't looked at them since
No,
I know you put that email out. There was some, you wanted.
Can I suggest that we put these off until our meeting next week?
I was just going to ask if people wanted to
Yes,
table it.
yes, we can do that.
Yes, please.
We can do that, yeah.
The other thing I wanted to, well, I guess we should go through that first. Should someone make a motion to table the minutes? I believe we have one.
I'll make a motion to table the minutes.
Okay, Jim made a motion to table last meeting's minutes till next
I'll second
meeting.
that.
Made and seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
That passes. We'll table the meeting minutes. Would we like our meeting minutes to be released in draft form? There's been some discussion in the town about that sort of thing. A little bit of, I guess, confusion over what is standard practice, but I think that we as a board should kind of come up with a census of what we want. So I don't know how you all feel, but.
I think there's a difference between releasing them, but I believe the state requires that they be made available within 5 business days from the date of the meeting. And I do know that the new secretary or whoever's handling those is having some difficulty in getting them done. But I do know that they have to be made available upon request. Now, there's a difference between that and maybe posting them publicly on the website, but I think they do have to be made available again within the 5-day period.
Sure.
In draft.
Correct.
In draft form.
In draft form. Do we want to make is it worth it? And tell me if I'm making bureaucracy that's not necessary, that we as a board come out saying like, hey, we go ahead and publish our minutes in draft form.
I will.
You're right. On the other hand, I mean, the other plus on the town is we do have, if somebody did want to, and so to speak, but
Well,
100% correct, there's a 5-day reporting to be made available, whether it be their notes, which they, or something that should be.
Okay. Maybe
So-
this is unnecessary. I just want to make
So
sure
is-
that we are doing our part.
The issue is that the minutes aren't going up fast enough, right? Not that they're not available. It's
I believe that to be correct.
it's a similar problem to the enforcement where it's like, what does having our draft minutes up there do if the regular minutes aren't even
available? All I was trying to do was remove a potential roadblock that, maybe we hadn't approved our minutes and so they weren't getting out. If we were okay with our draft minutes being released before we'd voted on and approved them, maybe we could release some of the roadblock on that. That's all I was thinking.
I will tell you that for years, the Conservation Commission has put our minutes up within 5 days after our meetings, and they are available on the website. The other thing was that that had been done years ago, that when draft minutes were done, they were circulated amongst the boards and commissions, but not necessarily made publicly. And as we know that you can send with a click of the button, planning, ZBA, Conservation Commission. So the question is, do you want your minutes circulated to the other boards and commissions? Do you want them just to be available upon request?
I don't have any issue if we circulate our minutes. How does everyone else feel?
I don't
Yeah.
have an issue with it.
As drafts.
As
drafts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would see that having them available, for example, right now, Jim and I are both on the Conservation Commission, so we know that this is what we have discussed tonight. It will be brought up at our next meeting, but having that available to other members of the Conservation Commission before even our agendas go out might not be a bad idea, so.
Yeah. I don't know if we have to formally vote on that. I'm not sure I guess we're trying to make sure that we are not holding up anything. You share our minutes as it needs to be shared. Yeah.
It wasn't fixed like tomorrow night for a planning's meeting. I know you can't get it. Sometimes it's like a 1 week or a 2 week gap that if somebody that was approved, we wouldn't know that there's some stipulations to closely look.
Sure.
So even just the draft minutes.
Yeah, I guess
I'm sorry. Yeah, so what I was saying, it's
Yeah.
great help even if like the planning board meets a week after the zoning board and you had some stipulations such as tonight, that then we could look at it and make sure that those are all covered, as opposed to we don't cover them and then they have to come back again 30 days later, because sometimes we get some applicants that have to come back. It takes them 90 days to get through the whole process because we're waiting for the minutes or the things to come up.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
whatever we can do as a board to relieve that pressure, I just want to make sure we're doing it. And if it's having our draft minutes be sent out, like that's really easy. I mean, it doesn't even literally do anything on our part.
Yeah.
Do we need to make a vote on that, or is that?
Necessary, but if you want to take a vote, sure.
Oh, okay. If it's not necessary, I don't need to do that.
I don't. I'm happy.
Okay. And then I just wanted Steve, obviously you're a new member to come to the board, so we didn't give you, so how we normally do it out, or how we have it shake out is, we used to get our packets mailed to us.
Yep.
It just became cumbersome. We were getting packets, but then Leanne was printing packets for us. So what the process is right now is she sends us the case, whatever the caseload is, the week before. So we have a meeting next week. She'll email out anything she has tomorrow.
Okay.
For us to have a week to review it. And then she still will have a packet available to us when we get here. We just found that eased the paperwork burden the most there.
That is. Lesson here. The other part of that is the information is on the website. She puts it up on the website as well. So if you say you can't read this little piece of paper that's part of your documents, you can go to the website and click on it there.
Pull the cases, yeah. We waited that week because I don't apologize. I don't know the dates in the windows. There's a certain cutoff for people to turn in their applications prior to our month's meeting. And that was just the window that made sense for her to have a chance to compile it all.
Yeah.
And then also give us some time to be able to review it before.
The other part on that is there are several times when we have a newspaper deadline because of holidays and what have you, that then we actually have to take a little bit more time because they're not going to be printing on a certain date that we would normally have for our guidelines.
Okay.
So there are some other situations like that.
Yeah. It's just that's unless we want to change that, that's currently what we do. We get it the Tuesday before the meeting is when she sends it all to us.
Is there a methodology that you can determine that like a read receipt or a something like that? Because one of the problems I have, and Chuck knows this because we're on the same commission, if it's a large file, my system doesn't handle anything over, I think it's 10 megabytes. So if there's a lot of photographs or a lot of documentation in the application, I won't even know that it was coming to me.
I don't know.
And there used to be a read receipt that I could do through Outlook, but I haven't seen a read receipt in
I'll try to,
in probably 5 or 6 years.
Let me write myself a note. I'll try to see if I can ask and get an answer for that.
Maybe Chuck will know about that because,
Well, I know Outlook does that, but I know where you use Juno,
yeah,
that you have, do have file limitations.
And the town uses Google, so it's something.
Yeah, Gmail, you can send almost anything. Jim, you need a Gmail account.
It's 2023.
I know. Every time I switch to something else, I get the virus and my computer's down.
Well, you got the thing you trust, so I can appreciate that.
You know, I'm loyal to not having my computer end up in the repair facility for a week, which then puts me out of commission.
Even worse out of it, yeah.
Yeah. So,
I would imagine we can follow up with downstairs and find out if.
or yeah.
Do you have an iPhone?
I haven't hooked it up. I don't have an iPhone. I have a Samsung, but I
There's
don't.
another problem.
I don't have it hooked up to the thing. And Samsung's a problem with Gmail, so I can't even get a
Oh, yeah.
Gmail account
Yeah.
on Samsung. So
Oh, you do have a Gmail account?
no, I can't
He's
get
excited.
a Gmail account because I have a Samsung phone.
Yeah, I have
It was
Gmail.
Samsung.
You can use Samsung and Gmail.
It deletes everything I put in there, which probably is a setting. It's probably a setting issue. I need to talk to somebody that's a real techno wizard like Chuck and figure this out.
So as we're not married to that, it's just what we've done. If we find a time we want to change, we want to do something different, we can always make it easier.
Hello? Yeah. So this document was not on the website, and that was pertained to the purpose of the meeting tonight was that. So not all the documents are available to look at on the website, and you don't know if it's not there because
Totally.
it's not there. So you don't know if it's missing. So you assume that everything is there. So that could be, I don't know how to rectify that.
Yeah, I don't think that's, I don't know what
Nothing
we
we
can do
can
about
do,
that.
It sounds like the town's having a lot of website issues.
Yes, I did glean that also.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully the conversation will shake out some good solutions, but
Yeah.
just want to make sure that we're not causing any choke points there. I don't have anything else. Someone else has something.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made to adjourn and seconded at 7:27. All those in favor?
Aye.
It passes. Meeting is adjourned at 7:27. Don't forget to stop recording.
Stop recording.
Stop recording.
Jeez.
Oh, I should have brought my glasses.
I didn't.
Careful when you pound the gavel on the glass.
I would imagine. This must be what this is for here.